Okay, Gordon, could you please promote Commissioners Irani and Faulkner? Oh, and Commissioner Clem is here as well.
I thought I got Amir, but sure.
Hello.
Okay, let us get started. Good evening, 7:02. I'm Zach Gold, the chair of the Planning, Zoning, and Transportation Committee here at ANC 1C, as well as the commissioner for 1C05. I'm joined by Commissioners Faulkner and Irani. Happy to have them here, and glad to see other commissioners attending as well. Just two quick transportation related announcements, since we have a few folks here. The first is that I reached out to the 16th Street bike lane folks to understand when the striping and signage and all that would be completed at the intersection of Columbia, Harvard, and 16th Street, and was not given a lot of information, but was told this would be happening in the fall. And was told that they don't want to set expectations for earlier timing that they wouldn't be able to meet. But I'm looking forward to having the 16th Street restriped, as well as having the bike share station moved back to its appropriate place at the intersection of 16th and Harvard. The second thing to be aware of is that starting on Friday, DC's new electric scooter regulations will go into effect, likely to be as followed as the bike regulations that say that all electric scooters need to be locked to something when parked. And those some things will be either bike racks or in-street bicycle corrals, parking signposts, or stop signs. So if you use an electric scooter, please put it where it's supposed to be. Thank you. At least don't leave it in the middle of the sidewalk. That's really all I ask. The first item on our agenda is a hearing a request for special exception at 2916 18th Street Northwest. Gordon, can you promote Mr. DeBeer and is the tenant or the, I guess, and Preston Ratcliffe as well.
They're coming up now.
Great, thank you. So you should be able to present, and the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Gold. I'm just going to share my screen here as we walk through this presentation. So as you mentioned, my name is Eric DeBeer from Cozen O'Connor Land Use Council on behalf of the homeowners, Preston and Alex Ratliff. This is a BZA case for their home at 2916 18th Street Northwest. The request to the BZA is to construct a deck on the rear of their home, which you're looking at right now, the brown home in the middle of this drawing, and we can walk through some of the plans. But before we do, I did want to just allow Preston and Alex to say hello to the subcommittee, introduce themselves and what their goals are for the project.
Thank you, Eric. It's nice to meet everyone remotely, hopefully one day in person, but obviously for now, everything's kind of remote. So this is my wife, Alex.
Hello.
And my name's Preston Ratliff, and we live at 2916 18th Street. Kind of the history of our relationship with Lanier Heights is she and I started looking for homes in probably 2018, and we wanted to be in Lanier Heights. It's our favorite neighborhood. And after searching for about a year, finally found one that we really loved, which is this home here. And so we moved in August of 19 and then began kind of a long, thoughtful design process, which was sort of just figuring out how we wanted to update and renovate the space. And so I think we finally started work after some kind of COVID-related delays on the zoning in, what was that, June of 20?
Yeah.
And then finally completed the work in March of this year. And so we've been in for about 6 months. And, you know, as part of that design process, we were kind of misled by our design folks that sort of indicated that we could have a bigger deck, which was kind of part of our plan for a couple of reasons. And ultimately, we found out that we were not able to do that during our renovation process. And so that's kind of what leads us here today. The goal for having that space is we're both pretty outdoor oriented people. My wife, Alex, is pregnant and due in January. And so we want to have a place that we can have the child be able to be outside and moving around without risk of falling, which is on the front porch, obviously with the stairs, it's hard to kind of insulate that area. It's an additional ingress egress, and that's important for the primary reason is as we have family that come stay, they will be able to stay in our basement unit, and that will kind of allow us having stairs, which is included in the design, which I'm sure we'll walk through, from the parking area up to the porch. And so basically the downstairs in-law suite has its own kind of ingress egress for privacy purposes. And then the last piece is related to having, and the other piece of that is being able to like bring groceries up and that sort of thing just from the stairs. And then the last piece is having enough room out there to be able to grill. Currently we're allotted 3 feet, and that puts the grill kind of right up against the house. And so strictly from like a safety standpoint, we are kind of hoping to push that back a little bit further from the home. So that's kind of, we've lived in DC as further background. Both of us moved up here out of college. So kind of, I think 2013, 2014 is when we both moved up here and met, and maybe 2016 or 2017. And we love DC. We plan on being here for the long haul, and we love Linear Heights. And it's nice to meet everyone, and thank you for your time on a weeknight at 7 p.m. I know there's other places people would like to be, so we appreciate your time.
Preston, do you just want to talk before I get into the plans and a little bit about the special exception? Just talk about your outreach leading up to the application.
Certainly, yep. So we have at least spoken with the majority of our block. I would say well over 50%. And for the neighbors that we're very friendly with and know best, we felt comfortable enough to ask for letters of support. That includes Ricardo, which is in the photo in front of you to the right, the blue house on the back. He moved in at the same time we did, so we've now known him for a couple of years, and he and his girlfriend we've become good friends with. And then 2 doors down, the Radomskis, similar thing. They just had a child, and so we're kind of helping each other navigate those waters, and so we've become really close. And then our neighbor directly to the north, which is to the left in that photo that you're looking at, we've recently come to know them a lot better. They moved in December or January, so within the last 12 months. Because they're relatively new friends of ours, I felt a little out of the comfort zone of asking them for a letter. But what we did was we printed out our plans that we have here for presentation today, invited them over for drinks, walked them through the plans, and actually updated the design based on their feedback. So we actually we adjusted the dimensions of the deck, and then we also added, you'll see in the plans, lattice to add additional privacy. We're going to keep those green trees. We think they're very pretty and add to the character of the alleyway. But there's a space that you can't tell from this photo between the tree closest to the house and the house itself. There's maybe a 10 to 12 foot gap there. And so taking into the consideration their feedback, we added lattice to that design, which will be included if we're able to ultimately build the deck. And they were amenable to all that and gave verbal support. But again, because it's a new friendship of ours, I felt a little uncomfortable asking for a formal letter, but that's kind of the background. And then we've talked to several other additional neighbors up the street, but similar thing. I mean, we've known them, gotten to know many of them over the last couple of years, and have great relationships with all of them. It just felt a little bit too formal of a request for someone we didn't know quite as well.
Thanks, Preston. So I'm just going to briefly walk through the existing images and the plans, and then just talk about the zoning relief we're seeking. So what you're looking at right now is the rear of Preston and Alex's home. As Preston mentioned, there is a very small deck of 3 feet that does not really provide much space at all and does pose a potential fire safety risk with a grill. So what you're looking at right now is an image from the other side of the alley. So there's a 15-foot wide alley, and actually across what you can't see behind where the photo is taken is there's a large courtyard as well. So quite a bit of open green space across from their home. And just a couple other images from along the alley where the deck would be proposed, similar views, but just to give the commissioners kind of an idea of, again, what you're looking at. And then in terms of the BZA plans, what's being proposed is a 171 square foot deck. So as we mentioned, the deck currently projects 3 feet, and the request is for the deck to project 11 feet by almost the width of the lot, plus the stair you can see on the left-hand side of the right image. The underneath the deck would be what currently is the 2 parking spaces, but obviously the deck would create, considerable new outdoor space for Preston and Alex to use for their family and friends. And you can see the section image. So this would be north facing, I believe. And you can see the privacy lattice that Preston mentioned to assist in protecting privacy for the abutting neighbor, who again we spoke with but has not entered a letter of support, but has indicated that they are comfortable with the project. You can also notice the trees that we talked about in the prior images. And here's a rendering as well as a site plan of what the deck would look like. You can see on the left-hand side the deck with the car spaces underneath, and on the right-hand side you can just see a simple rendering of what the rear of the home would look like with the new deck. We do not, unfortunately, as the commissioners requested, have a contextual rendering with all of the accurate details of the other home. If that's needed, we could talk about that. Certainly trying to keep the homeowners, budget in mind, and trying to keep the BZA plans as efficient as possible. At this point, I just want to walk through the relief itself. So we are seeking lot occupancy relief. The existing home is 58% lot occupancy, and with the new deck, the lot occupancy would be up to 67.6%. That is within, as I'm sure the commissioners know, within the RF1 special exception standard for lot occupancy. In addition to that, the existing rear yard is 20 feet wide, and as a result of the deck, the rear yard would be reduced to 10.5 feet. We do believe we've met the standard, as Preston and Alex talked about. This is definitely to further the use of their home as a single family dwelling. It is to provide space for their family, their soon to be growing family, and their friends to host and enjoy the wonderful neighborhood of Lanier Heights. In terms of adverse impact, we don't believe there would be any undue impact in terms of light and air, because the deck itself is obviously open beneath. So you're not dealing with a new interior home that would create potential shadowing on neighboring properties, but since it's opened underneath and on the ground level, you'd really not be having a considerable impact. And again, I think that is reflected in the fact that, again, one neighbor is supportive and the other has indicated he has no objection, albeit without a formal letter in the record. In terms of privacy, Preston and Alex, as we talked about, have proposed a lattice, obviously not required, but something that they felt would benefit their neighboring property owner, and then maintaining those trees. And so we do believe those two features would provide ample privacy protection. And of course, in general, these homes in the rear are not used for socializing, they're used for parking. So even without the lattice and the trees, we do believe that there would not be any impact in terms of being able to see into someone's fenced in rear yard. This is just a place where people park their cars, and you could see that in the images we opened the presentation with. So with that, I think we've talked plenty here. We'd be happy to certainly answer any questions that the commissioners have. Our hearing is on November 17th, and we'd certainly be seeking the ANC's support for this request for the new deck.
Great, thank you so much for that presentation. First off, Alex, Preston, congratulations on your growing family. It's very exciting and always great when families are staying and raising families in the neighborhood. I know I see tons of strollers around, so you certainly will be a part of the fabric of Linear Heights. I did have a couple questions regarding 2918, and maybe maybe the most appropriate thing would be for you or for Eric to say to your neighbor. I recognize it's uncomfortable to ask, but definitely from our perspective, it is helpful to have a letter of support from a neighbor, and maybe you can put it on us and say, gosh, the ANC says we need this. But I was just looking, and I see that they have a deck as well. Do you know how far out their deck projects? I mean, is your deck in line with, is your plan in line with what they already have, or do they have a similar 3-foot deck as you currently have?
I believe theirs is about 7 feet. And so ours would be about 4 feet beyond that. And the purpose of that design was to have room for the stairs, not the spiral staircase, which was more difficult for us to use for groceries, and the dog can't use them, as silly as that sounds. He's incapable of using spiral staircases. And so that was we ended up going a little bit further out, but I believe his is 7 feet, in answer to your question.
Sure, thank you. Other commissioners, do you have questions or comments?
No questions here.
Yeah, no questions for me either, I don't think.
Okay, that's great. Members of the community, any questions or comments? All right, hearing none or seeing none, I think this is a pretty straightforward case in my perspective. And so I think that we should, or I will call a vote on favorable hearing from the PZT and placing this on the agenda for the full ANC in October. All in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? There's no opposition because I heard all three of us. Thank you all for being here today. I think that it'd be great if you bring these slides again next Wednesday, but don't need to go through it with such detail unless, of course, there are questions. We're looking forward to supporting this project to help you and your family grow and stay in the neighborhood.
Thank you. We really appreciate it.
Thank you. It's nice to meet everyone.
Thank you all.
Bye-bye.
Have a good evening.
Thank you. You too. Great. So next, we're going to hear from PEPCO about some proposed work. So Gordon, that is the E988 as well as Kahan.
They're both coming up.
Perfect.
Hey, no, thank you. This is Travorce Culpepper from Pepco. Can everybody hear me?
We can hear you. Looking forward to your presentation.
Thank you so very much. And I'm just going to share my screen here. And wanted to just thank the ANC Commission, thank Commissioner Clem, and also community members as well. Again, my name is Travorce Culpepper. I am a government affairs manager at Pepco, and I'm joined by my colleague Kehan. And what we'll be doing today is talking to you about the construction that is taking place in the area. Hold on one second. Let me just start this slideshow here. And basically, this is associated with the Champlain Substation. And as many of you all know, we are upgrading the Champlain Substation as a part of the Capital Grid project, where we'll be upgrading 3 substations, which, as you see represented in green, building an additional substation, a Mount Vernon substation, as well as connecting all of these substations together with a 10-mile transmission line. And many of you may have seen a lot of the construction work currently taking place on 16th Street, Florida Avenue, near the area. And so this project, again, has multiple purposes. The purpose that we're upgrading the Champlain substation in your area as part of this project is because it has been in existence since 1930, and we're replacing a lot of the equipment that is inside of the substation so that it can continue to meet the needs of residents in the future. So this portion of the project will allow us to rebuild the substation to increase its capacity and continue serving customers. As you can see, here's what the substation looks like from different viewpoints. Once it's complete, we will enclose the outside equipment. And this was feedback that we heard from residents and neighbors. And we'll certainly be doing that once we start construction on the substation. I will share that construction for this substation has been delayed. We were anticipating starting construction around 2023, but we will not be doing that. It has been pushed back to what we anticipate potentially 2025 or to 2026. And we're working to confirm those dates, but just wanted to share that information with you. But before we start construction on the substation, there is some, I'm sorry, go ahead. Was there a question?
I think it was just an open mic on Commissioner Ronnie's part.
Oh, okay, no problem.
Sorry.
No problem. No, thank you. Just wanted to share there is some preliminary work that will take place that will be distribution construction. And it will take place along V Street, going from the Florida Avenue substation to the Champlain substation, starting at 13th and V Street, and then going across V Street to Florida Avenue. A lot of this work, and then as you can see, there are additional construction that will take place near the area, but will start along, if you look at my cursor here, along Harvard Street, at Sherman Avenue across 16th Street, and then also at Columbia Road, starting at Sherman Avenue across 16th Street as well. We are coordinating with the 16th Street bus lane operation that's currently in construction at this time. So we are coordinating with them on this. Some of this construction will take place after they have completed their work, but we will restore that area from curb to curb. And so we will be restoring that area. We plan on starting construction along V Street in November, which will last until July of next year. And then starting work on Columbia Road in December, and then, finishing up in July, and then starting in January along Harvard Street, and going into August. We will be phasing the work in segments. There will be 1 lane of traffic taken. And on the construction along V Street, there will be 2 distribution lines that will be installed. So we'll coordinate that and then follow up with a schedule of when we would actually complete this work from, where work will be starting in different segments. But generally the hours are 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. Monday through Friday. And if you had any further questions, my email is below. We don't have a contractor identified at this point in time. We've just submitted permits for the construction. And so once we have those permits, the work will be phased and we will have a better time as far as when we'll actually be within ANC 1C. But it will start sometime in November across the certain segments, and we'll come back with a more detailed schedule. And happy to take any questions at this time.
Thank you, Trevoris. I'd love to hear more about your coordination with DDOT and the 16th Street bus lane. I greatly appreciate you saying that you're going to restore the pavement curb to curb. Certainly that's an improvement over some utility projects in the area. At the same time, the residents on that corner have just had to deal with 7 months of construction at the intersection, including night paving, right? So they were up all night with very loud machinery to pave a street that now you're tearing up 2 months later. And so, it'd be great to understand how that coordination fell apart, that DDOT put together a road that it's not even dry yet. They haven't put down the lines and you're going to be tearing it up again.
I know, I'm sorry, I was on mute. So thank you, Commissioner Gold, for that question. And definitely do understand that, we are going to be, excavating across 16th Street. There were some design delays with our project, which caused us not to be in the same, execution time frame. So we're starting a little bit behind. But we do participate in the bi-monthly meetings, coordination meetings on this project. And so they are aware that we are excavating and we have been, made aware, of course, to restore from curb to curb in those areas.
Now, as I recall, last year you were working on Columbia Road starting roughly around 1660 Columbia Road, and then it looks like this project sort of starts where you left off there. Is that correct?
No, well, I know that we had another project that was taking place close in proximity to 16th Street, and our construction at that time was more so focused on Mount Pleasant Road and then also Hobart Street along the 16th Street corridor. So we actually, did not have construction on 16th Street itself, but there was some work that was taking place not so far away along Mount Pleasant Road and then also Hobart Place on 16th Street.
You were also just, and I apologize, thanks to the pandemic, dates meld together, but I believe it was earlier this year or last year, it might have been last year, that you were on Columbia Road and Lanier Place.
Yes, we were in that area, correct.
All right, and so it seems to be from the plan that sort of this project starts where that left off.
Oh, yeah, I know, I understand what you're saying. No, this is a totally different project. So what was taking place in Lanier Place and up around that area was something that was more so having to do with reliability. And we were taking out some of the old rubber lead cable that currently serve that particular neighborhood, and placing in newer cable that would not that was more that would taking out the old cable, putting in new cable. So there was more of along reliability. So it was more so tied to that particular neighborhood, whereas this particular project is more so focused on preliminary work for the Champlain Substation rebuild. So what we will be doing really with this project is putting in new distribution lines so that customers can be served by the Florida Avenue Substation. And let me go back. So I apologize for that. So basically what we will be doing is rerouting customers currently served by the Champlain Substation and putting you all on the Florida Avenue Substation. So it's more preliminary work for Champlain Substation to actually be decommissioned, and so that you can still have power while we're building the substation.
Sure. And I guess just today I was driving down 16th Street for an afternoon appointment, and I was stuck at a U Street, or I guess V Street, where everything was moved down to a single lane. And that's your project. That's the red project now.
Yes, so we're currently working along 16th Street in coordination with the DDOT crews. We're putting in that 10-mile transmission line that I mentioned to you as part of this project. And so the transmission lines are actually what feeds the power to the substations. And so we're putting in that 10-mile transmission line that goes across New Hampshire Avenue, which we've completed a lot of the construction there. We're currently installing transmission lines along Georgia Avenue, and then 11th Street, and then of course on 16th Street and T Street. So that is our work that is taking place with that transmission line installation.
So then it's accurate, or I guess just to reiterate what you said, that the intersection of Columbia and Harvard will be similarly moving down to single laning from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. essentially for all of 22?
In segments, so it will not be the entire stretch of V Street or the entire stretch of Harvard or Columbia. What we would do is work in phases along like different blocks, so that we won't take up the entire road, from 16th Street to Sherman Avenue, or V Street from 13th to Florida. We will not take up the entire road. We will be doing this in segments. At this time, I just don't have any information as far as where we'll be starting in November, because we don't have a contractor. But once once we have a contractor, what I'd like to do is share those blocks and where work will start, and then the approximate durations. And that's what we will be doing to residents impacted by this work as well, sharing that information. But we did want to come before you just to let you know that this work is coming.
Okay, absolutely. And I'll turn it over to my fellow commissioners, but 100%, it would be, again, having the residents at the intersection of 16th and Columbia having to deal with construction for, while working from home throughout the pandemic, certainly be really helpful for us to be able to tell them exactly when that work at 16th Street in Columbia and 16th Street in Harvard would be carried out. Fellow commissioners, any questions?
Those are excellent points. Thanks for going over that. But otherwise, no questions. Thank you, Commissioner Gold.
Yeah, I don't have any additional questions.
I guess I'm the one that lives on that corner, so I hear from my constituents and neighbors on a regular basis. Mr. Gambrell, please go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Terrific. Commissioner Gold, thank you very much for those comments regarding streets that get paved and then torn up. I think that all of us have scratched our heads about that whole sequencing of construction, and it's quite frustrating. My question to Mr. Culpepper, when I was on the ANC, as I vaguely recall, the Champlain Street structure was going to be designated a historic building on the basis of its architecture. I know it was a contentious vote, but the ANC did vote in favor of that. I don't recall if that secured historic preservation status. I kind of raised that primarily in the context of what changes would occur to the substation. Would anything be bigger than it is now? I'm really speaking from the standpoint of having a lot of compassion for the neighbors in that area who, have to live with that, relatively unattractive plot of land. And I would hate to see any changes made that would make things bigger, less attractive, and certainly noisier.
I think, Gordon, it looks like Trevor's just came back on. So I'll repeat the question when he's back there. Although, hang on, if you have a response as well to that, that would be great.
I just elevated him.
Great.
Sorry about that.
Welcome back. There was a question from former Commissioner Gambrell about whether the size of the substation will change in any way once constructed.
Yes, so the footprint of the substation will change slightly. And so I don't have those exact dimensions in front of me, but what I do know is that the building will be enclosed, and then it will create a bigger footprint on the property, but it will not exceed the property line.
Alan, does that answer your question, or you want to?
No, just the additional thing would be about the building itself. I thought it had secured historic preservation status, which I think would mean you couldn't tear it down and certainly couldn't enlarge it. Can you speak to whether or not the building does have that status?
Yes, it was designated historic from the application that was submitted. But however, we have to go through another process, which is called the mayor's agent, because we're not able to meet all of the historical requirements for the substation. What was deemed historic was the wall that's facing Old Morgan School Place, as well as the front facade and the buttresses along the substation. And so we will maintain the front facade and then not all of the buttresses. And then that wall that is facing Old Morgan School Place will be torn down. And because it does require that construction to take place, we have to go through another formal process, which is called the mayor's agent, that actually will review again our plans and then make the final approval. But at this time, we have not gone through that process because the substation construction has been delayed for the next few years.
So if I'm understanding correctly, the work that's being done in the coming months to move our neighborhood to substation Florida Avenue, that is almost disconnected from the sorry for the pun, from the substation down in our ANC, because it's not clear when or if that is going to take place. I mean, if you have to go through this whole review process, that sounds like it's going to take a long time. Is that right?
Yeah, it is going to be an additional review from the mayor's agent, but we are still moving forward with our plans as part of this project. So we don't have any plans on deterring from the substation upgrade. It definitely is needed, and so we will be moving forward with our plans. However, what happens is when you have a building that is deemed historic and there is a need to disturb a certain portion of the historic, elements of the building, there is another formal process that you have to follow in order to get those final approvals because it is historic. And so we will be moving forward with that formal process. But what's happening right now is that we're installing the distribution line as preliminary work. And we had to do the same thing at the Harvard substation, which is currently in construction and was also deemed historic as well. We had a series of preliminary construction that had to take place before the substation was before the substation construction began. And so that's what we're doing right now with this a portion of the project is we are making sure that we transfer customers over to the Florida Avenue substation as preliminary work so that we can begin the Champlain substation construction, if that makes sense.
Thank you. Commissioner Clem, not to put you on the spot, but as the substation is in your SMD, if you do have any comment or thought, you're welcome to share.
Thank you. No, thank you, Commissioner Gold. I don't have any questions.
Cool. Any other questions or comments from commissioners or from members of the public? Awesome. Well, Trevorce, thank you for presenting this to us. And despite my frustrations, I will say that the curb-to-curb repaving that your contractors did of a half block of Columbia Road is the nicest paved half block of Columbia Road in our ANC. So while I'm not looking forward to the disruptions, I certainly look forward to the outcome. Thank you so much for being here.
No, thank you so very much. And I want to thank again the rest of the commission for allowing us to come here today. We will have, we'll schedule a community meeting as well in October, just to ensure that residents are aware of this construction. And during that time, we probably will have a better sense of where construction will actually be starting along V Street, but would like to make sure that you guys have that information beforehand. So thank you all very much.
Thank you. Great. So moving on, next on our agenda is hearing a presentation on and consideration of a letter of support for the Rock and Roll Half Marathon. And Gordon, that is Miss Diane Romo Thomas.
Good evening,
Good evening,
everyone. Hi. Take my video off here for you guys. Good evening, everyone. Real quick, my name is Diane Thomas. This is the Rock and Roll, DC Rock and Roll half marathon this year. This is the 16th year. This half marathon and marathon is running, it had run through DC. It's my 14th year presenting to this ANC on this event. The event for 2021 is November 13th. If you recall, this is traditionally a March event. As you can imagine with COVID, we had to push it back to November. So the date is now November 13th, and it is only a half marathon. So you will not see the full marathon. You guys saw both set of runners through this ANC, but this year the field size will be a little smaller, that we're only hosting a half marathon. And the marathon will not return for this event. It will run in March of 2022. So it's scheduled to run March 27th in 2022. But purpose of this meeting is to just give you an update. Again, nothing's changed as far as the core streets and how it impacts your ANC. The runners are coming eastbound out of the park on Calvert, crossing into your ANC, crossing Connecticut into your ANC. They run eastbound on Calvert, picking up Adams Mill. They are south on Adams Mill until they get to Columbia Road, where they turn left, which is east. And then they're on Columbia through the heart of your community there, and will exit your ANC at 16th Street, where they'll pick up Harvard and continue eastbound to the reservoir. The impact you're going to see for your ANC, the first runner will come through probably about 9 a.m. The race starts at 8:30 a.m. down at 14th and Constitution. The elite runners are keeping a pretty good pace, so you'll see the first ones come through there at 9 a.m. The street closures with cleanup will be out of your commission by between 11:30 a.m. and 11:45. And we're pretty good on those times. Historically, we've been out of the ANC as we have reported. So that's really in a nutshell this event. Again, in the 16th year, it runs through wards 1, 2, 3, 5, and 6. We lost wards 7 and 8 with the marathon going away. So transverses are a pretty good part of the city. But again, without that marathon, that bottom part of the event is open. I don't know if you can see the course there, but it's on the screen. You're going to see runners at miles 6 and 7 will be coming through your ANC. So they're at a pretty good pace at that point, spread out a lot. With the protocol, with the COVID protocols, we're spreading the field size out, so you won't see such a dense pack of runners as we traditionally have come through the your commission. But that's in a nutshell. I don't know if anyone has any questions. There'll be no band stages in your ANC. There's a band stage coming out of the park at Calvert, and there's not another band stage until the runners get by Howard University over there by the reservoir. So there won't be any stage set up in your ANC. So there won't be any, organized music for the event. There'll be signage going up a week before. The 22 by 22 chloroplast boards that you've seen historically go up along the course. And we'll be doing a mailing to some of the homes along the course as well, just reminding the events coming up. So that's the event in a nutshell. If you have any questions?
Commissioners, any questions?
I don't think I have any questions. I live right along this route, and I actually ran this race a couple years ago, so I'm a big fan. And I know a lot of people enjoy cheering on runners as they go through, and it seems like it's been a really well-run race in the past. So
we hear really good things about that particular part of the race. Just a lot of energy from the community for runners going through.
So I guess the only question I have is a public health and safety question, right? As you know, the Marine Corps decided to call off the Marine Corps Marathon, which was scheduled for 2 weeks prior to your marathon, your half marathon. Why is this a good idea in this time?
Well, the protocols are in place for this outside event. The Marine Corps made that decision on its own, purely by the organizers. That's a much larger field as well. You're talking about 30,000 runners. This is going to be a much smaller scale. And with the smaller scale, they're thinking they're going to get about 12. It's going to be probably less than that. A lot of the runners may have moved their registration to the March event, since it's going to be hopefully running in March. So we think in the field size, it's going to be a lot smaller than Marine Corps traditionally is. And with the protocols and the spacing of the runners, the Rock and Roll feels pretty confident that they'll be able to safely run this event.
Thank you. Members of the community, any questions or comments? All right, hearing none. Ms. Thomas, I guess you had in your email asked for a letter of support from the ANC. Is that something that, I guess, what's the purpose in that? Or you're going to carry this event on with or without us?
Right.
Yeah.
So there's the Homeland Security and the Mayor's Special Events Task Force does listen to the ANC. Trust me. Again, this is my 14th year with the event, and the ANCs have actually shaped some of the course in Capitol Hill. So they're not on blown deaf ears. They just want to make sure that we're out in the community, letting you guys know what's coming through, because it impacts you on a Saturday morning. So we want to make sure you have that information, your SMD constituents have that information about the event coming up, and just so they can plan accordingly. The street closures, we also use Waze for the street closures. So if you're trying to move around that morning, Waze will have the street closures for the event, and we've done that for the last 5 or 6 years on the event. So that's helpful for folks trying to move around in the morning. But normally the task force asks us to go out into the ANCs just to make sure they're notified that it's happening. If you guys have had any concerns from the past years, So we also keep that in consideration and make sure that the task force knows that we have gone out and try to continue to communicate with folks about the event.
Okay, thank you. We will certainly keep our constituents aware. I don't feel pressed to write a formal letter. Commissioner Faulkner, having run this event, do you feel otherwise?
I mean, I think it sounds like you know, if we had concerns, it would be a good thing to raise. I guess I don't feel super strongly either way. I think you know, it sounds like we probably are supportive, but if it, yeah, I don't know.
Commissioner Irani, I know that in previous years there was at least community pushback about this event. So I don't know if you have any thoughts on whether or not we should work on a letter.
There has been,
go
yeah, there has been pushback and concerns about, you know, people being locked in during the duration of the event. There's health and safety concerns this year. There's emails I've received, people not knowing where their car is because they were towed. And, you know, this is all for a, you know, for-profit marathon or half marathon. So I'm not, I understand that there's an economic impact here, but I'm not inclined to write a letter of support for the event either.
Yeah, I mean, you can, someone mark this time, but I think this is the only instance you'll ever hear me say, what about the parking? In a normal year, you know, whatever, but in a year where no one is really going out that much, right? There's nowhere to move a car if people aren't going away for a weekend, and people simply aren't going away as frequently. This is, you know, full disclosure to everyone else, in an email to Ms. Thomas, I raised this question of whether or not cars would have to be moved, and her response, and she could share it with you as well, is that it's a requirement. Is that a requirement of the DC Police or a requirement of DC Homeland Security?
DC Police. MPD has the Clean Streets, yeah, notice that goes out. Now I know in the past, this ANC, because of your parking, your past committee members of this committee have written a letter expressing that concern and asking MPD to not, you know, move cars. Again, you could probably look in the records on that. I know I think that happened in 2019 is the last time we ran this. So there probably something on record that you guys put in there. And I know there were cars in the neighborhood parked along the course in 2019 that were not moved. So I'm not sure how many were towed. Your Commissioner Irani mentioned that some were towed. I know there were some that were not actually towed, where they actually just did a sweep along the street with their normal just surveillance and security sweep of the cars, and didn't move some of them. I can't really tell you how many were actually towed, but I know a lot of them were on the course race morning and were not moved. Again, that's up to the discretion of MPD.
Yeah, no, so I think you, I guess the general consensus, at least from this committee, is that we're not going, as opposed to previous years, we're not going to put in a letter of disapproval, but we're also, I don't think, in a position to send a letter of support. But we certainly will let our constituents know that this is happening. And I know as a resident, I feel boxed in every year, and I'm trying to bicycle on Saturday morning with friends of mine who live downtown, and that's an impossibility. But certainly the people who participate in the race do have a good time, and I hope that they have a good time and stay safe and healthy this year as well.
So, and just to chime in there on what Ms. Thomas was saying, there was a resolution passed in 2018, and the support was conditioned on specifically on MPD not towing car, like ANC once he was not in support of moving, towing, ticketing any of these cars. So ANC support was conditioned on a reversal of MPD's request to do all those things, and that didn't end up happening. So cars, at least some people were ticketed, towed, etc. So
thank you for that history, and thank you, Ms. Thomas, for being here with us and for speaking about the race.
Sure.
Any other comments or questions from the attendees? All right, if not, let's move on. So the last item on our agenda is...
Before
yeah.
I disappear, I'm sorry. So if even if it's just a letter of acknowledgement that we came and presented, and I would still like you to present the concerns in that letter. I mean, so we can keep that on the record. As Commissioner Irani said, I mean, it's in the record that these are concerns of yours, and I just like that noted, and hopefully the full commission would at least, it would be on the agenda to at least let them hear that it's coming, and doesn't have to be a letter of support, but
Okay.
just a notice of notification, I guess.
I appreciate that. So is it then your intention to join the full ANC meeting next week?
I have for the last 14 years.
No, I just want to confirm that, and I apologize. Commissioner Irani and I work together very well, but sometimes I don't know what's on his agenda, and he doesn't know what's on my agenda, and that's okay. Commissioner Irani, go ahead.
yes. So how about we move to consider how about we move to hear from Ms. Thomas at our October 6th ANC meeting.
Well, I second that. So all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Commissioner Faulkner, are you opposed? Or...
No, I said aye. Sorry.
That's okay. That was probably a pause on my thing. Okay, so Ms. Thomas, we'll see you next week.
Sounds good, and I'll try to get some more information about that car towing, Commissioner Irani, and see what if MPD can give me some more information on that.
Okay, that's great.
Thank
Great.
you so much, you guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. All right, I feel comfortable saying now we'll move on to the next and last agenda item. And that is, we are hearing again from the team at 2240 Ontario Road. This is regarding, as you may recall, in, oh gosh, June or July, we approved a special exception for the building itself at this property. And then on they came to us this week or last week and asked that they are amending their BZA application. So obviously we want to weigh in on their amended BZA application. So let's see, I think this is a pretty big team. I believe it's Beck and Michael Cross, and maybe you two, thanks, other team members could raise your hands as well, perhaps. Let's see if I have this all. Gabby Garcia, I think. I do not believe that Matt is on that team. Andrew, thank you. Great. And Andrew, are there other members of your team that you'd like to be promoted? Or Michael? Everyone's here.
Andrew, you're muted.
Sorry about that. Yeah, so it should be Michael Cross who bailed me out right there. And Gabby may be back. I'm not sure if Beck is here.
Yeah, I'm here too. This is Beck.
Great. Could I have
Gabby should be coming.
Sorry.
Gabby should
I'm
be
here.
coming up
Thank
right
you.
now. Yep.
Thanks,
Great.
Zach.
All right. If I could get screen sharing permission, or do I have it already?
You have it.
Got it.
Great. Okay. So as the chair said, this is 2240 Ontario. It's a pretty minor modification to the original plans, which were for the building that you see here. We are adding parking spaces at the rear of the lot where currently there's this garage, although I understand it no longer exists, but this is what it used to look like. It used to be a 2-car garage, and there shall again be 2 parking spaces. This is a picture of down the block on the same side, other properties. We're requesting relief from a new part of the zoning regulations to have 2 compact size spaces at the rear. The new regulation requires spaces that are directly accessed from an alley that is 15 or fewer feet wide, have to be at least as long as a full-size space. So if you're following me, it doesn't have to be as wide, but it has to be as long as a full-size space. But here, the site constraints don't really allow it. And we'll walk through some of the reasons why it doesn't make sense for this lot. But so you can have relief under that section that requires the full-size length spot. So again, we're providing 2 compact spaces on an alley that is 10 feet wide at its narrowest, and then it does widen out near the end of the alley as sort of a turning basin. And then 712.11D says no space shall be less than compact, but we're meeting the compact size. 712.11E, as we're going to show as we will show on the plat, the shape of the alley is irregular, and that there's a 3-foot jog in the line for the lot where it meets the alley. That creates this challenge where we could either have 2 1-car roll-up doors, which you'll see in a moment is awkward and it doesn't let the vehicles really get in or out without hitting stuff, and or a single kind of 2-car garage door, roll-up door, that while it shortens the spots, makes it practically much more usable to allow the cars to come and go. Oh, and so the board could grant full or partial relief, but as you'll see, what we're asking for is really kind of the minimum relief possible that still allows the vehicles to get in and out of the spaces. And with that, I will turn it back over to Michael. So I'll stop my share.
And I will start my share here. Hopefully everybody can see that. As Andrew mentioned, we're seeking the additional relief to provide 2 compact parking spaces in lieu of the 1 full-size space that was shown originally. The property is at 2240 Ontario Road Northwest. That's on the west side of the block between Florida and Colorado. As mentioned, by providing the compact spaces, obviously we're going to be accommodating a second vehicle on our lot, further reducing the impact on street parking. And the reduced length allows for a cleaner roll-up door design along the alley. As Andrew mentioned, I'm going to zoom in if you don't mind. The proposed design has just a simple linear garage door along that faces the alley. And that is leaving a portion of the lot that's irregular there in the alley, basically outside of our garage door, as opposed to a solution that would have 2 different length spaces complying with the latest regulations. For us, what that benefit is when we do the staggered parking spaces,
there's a conflict in the turning radius with that support that would be required somewhere in the middle there, potentially 2 supports. With the car as it enters the compact space, you can see that conflict here with these dash lines turning through the highlighted portion. There's also a conflict with the larger spot as it exits its space, clearing that same support, as it would prematurely run into the opposite edge of that alley before having to make its way back down the alley. The proposed design eliminates both of those and leaves greater space for maneuverability in what Andrew described, that turning basin, but effectively the dead end alley where folks are required to turn around. This would give them a larger and wider spot there at that critical space to be able to do so. So I'll leave it there and answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you, Michael and Andrew. I guess the immediate question I have is, Michael, you framed this as you need to have the compact first space in order to fit the second space. But it seems when you're showing that conflict across the alleyway, that would exist with a roll-up door at 18 feet. If you only had that one parking spot, is that accurate?
I don't believe so, because I think what would happen is the car would be able to begin its turn earlier, whereas in this example, the car is having to wait until it exits that door to go back into the alley, whereas here with the single roll-up door, it's able to cut through that point. Is that answering your concern?
But that door is at 18 feet. And so so even if there was a single parking spot there at 18 feet, it wouldn't fit to make that turn radius.
Michael, if I could jump in.
Yeah.
I think what Zach is getting to, if it was a single space, it would be a full-size space, which means it would be 9 feet wide. And so that extra leeway would mean that the car could maneuver more freely through the opening and probably clear the edge of clear its own garage door opening and then clear the edge of the alley more easily, compared to here where it's restricted to only 8 feet wide per opening. And then you figure the door itself is going to be even narrower than that because it has to have supports.
Thanks for that, Andrew. And so a related question, I suppose, is where's the I guess the property line, or is the I guess Morse code dashes, is that sort of the edge of the lot?
It is, yes. And that, I guess in that orange color that I was just representing, the potential single garage door, that represents the furthest most property line. And then you can see that it jogs as described by Andrew originally, that it's in a regular shape.
Okay, so given that, and given that the garbage cans in your drawing are wider than the space available, how would the residents be able to maneuver their garbage to the alleyway if there was a second vehicle there?
Yeah, the trash is handled by private trash collection. And so their contract would be set to have them navigate the space that's provided. I don't know.
I can chime in. This is Beck. Yeah, so I use Tenleytown Trash, and we can stipulate how the pickup is. So what they'll do is they, pull into the alley at the dead end there. They hop out. There's a key code on the outside of the door. They type key code in. They walk in, grab the bags, trash, and then walk out. Throw in the truck and drive off. And I've had to do that on other projects throughout the city.
So they're not going to actually empty the trash bins. They're going to take the bags out from the top, and therefore general refuse could be stuck to the bottom of the trash cans, creating a rat buffet.
I mean, in theory, yeah, I guess that could be a scenario, but I can't.
So I guess another question is, you came before us earlier this year and asked for a special exception for the size of the building. How much does the project being larger than it should be on its lot affect the need for parking spaces that are smaller than their legal requirement?
I can speak to that. Not much. The only thing we're asking the lot occupancy relief for are the decks, which I thought we had them, are hanging off the back of the elevation here. And so the cellar down below doesn't count for lot occupancy, but the decks do.
Okay.
And so the decks are not what's limiting the parking space.
That's fair, but the cellar, which does not count as part of the lot occupancy, being that far back affects the size of the lot behind the property.
One could say that.
Well, the issue is at the alley. So even if they're 50 feet deep, we still have the issue.
Sorry, Beck, you're cutting in and out. Could you?
Yeah, Beck.
Again?
Is this better? Can you hear me a little better?
A little bit.
Okay. Even if the spaces were 50 feet deep, the conflict is at the alley and the width and the doors and all that. That's where the conflict is.
I could not understand that.
Oh, man.
I think what Beck is trying to say, that no matter how deep the spaces would be allowed to be, the alley opening, or not the alley, the width of the lot at the alley being so narrow is going to make vehicle circulation a challenge, kind of no matter what. And we're just trying to make the best of the situation here, which includes the jog, which is always going to exist in the lot line at the rear.
Sure. Okay, so I guess then my last question is, you noted twice in your documents, quote, "This irregularity makes it impossible to provide 2 parking spaces behind 2 roll-up doors." You also noted, quote, "It is not reasonably possible to comply with the parking length requirements and the desire to provide a roll-up door behind the parking spaces and the public alley." I noted in the photos that your neighbor doesn't have a roll-up garage. Why is that a necessity in this project?
So I'll note that the adjacent neighbor does not. Down the alley, there's one enclosed garage, and then there's one where there is a roll-up door. Thank you. A roll-up door in front of what I think is an open air space. And then of course, this lot itself used to have an enclosed garage until that came down. Maybe Beck can speak more to it, but I think it's just preference.
Yeah, it's truly preference and security. There's no real other reason than it just gives security and peace of mind to people with their cars parked in the alley and security for the rear of the building.
I think Beck was talking about the general preference. I'm sorry.
I think I heard him say it added to the sense of security for people living and parking at the building.
Sure. Commissioners, any questions?
Yeah, so if there was one parking space, then you could put that parking space at an angle, right? And that could probably alleviate some of the concerns that we're talking about getting in and out of that garage. And in addition to that, the trash issues, because pulling up your prior renderings and drawings, I think there were 3 or 4 trash cans, so either 50% or double what you're listing on your current renderings, which show, or drawings showing 2 trash cans. So there's still 8 units there, and 2 trash cans. That's not ideal. And knowing the regulation that says that about the parking space dimensions, you're asking for relief from those regulations, and those regulations are written to say that, requiring a specific size for the parking spaces if the public alley is 15 feet or less. It shouldn't be 8. I think is it 18 feet? Yeah.
Yeah, the rule was that it needed to be 18 feet long if it's 90 degrees to the alley center line.
Correct. And this alley, thank you for that. And this public alley is not it's not 14 feet or 13. It's only 10 feet wide. It's a lot smaller. It's a lot more.
If I might address that, and thank you, Michael, for reading my mind here to bring up this. If you'll zoom in on the image to the upper right of the plans. So if in the scenario where there's a single 2 wide roll-up door, you'll see that it is set back 3 feet from the alley center line, or 3 feet from the rear property line. So if that takes our 16 feet or 16-foot space, and it's 3 feet away from the alley, 16 plus 3 makes 19. So as far as maneuvering the vehicles, it's an 18-foot space before the car even gets to the alley, and with the added benefit that it gets to maneuver sideways. So while the alley might be 10 feet, it's set back as though it was an 18-foot space.
When counting part of the public alley right there.
The space that's the 3 feet labeled on the plan here, that is still our line.
Right. One of the 2 spaces, right?
Correct. Well, then in the space on the left, the alley is simultaneously 10 feet, but also as much as 16 or 17 feet wide, because it jogs out on both sides.
Well, that's
the benefit here, though, is that it gets that second car, which admittedly is not required by the zoning regulations. But that second car is parked off the street. It's not on the sidewalk, taking away parking spaces from other people in the neighborhood.
Right. I mean, I see, I have issues with the trash and the maneuverability of trying to add an extra parking space. I do. I appreciate the benefit of, 1 additional parking space that's deeded as opposed to on the street. And another benefit here, or rather what you pointed out of that what did you describe it as, a dog leg?
Yeah, dog leg.
Yeah.
I forget the other term.
Yeah. So
dog, I think.
Right. But it is a tight spot. I think it works a lot better as you previously had it as 1. You have more trash. There's less concern for maneuverability. That's my 2 cents. Thank you, Commissioner Gold.
Thank you, Commissioner Arati. Any other comments or questions from commissioners?
Yeah, I don't know that I have any questions. I think I also think it seems very very narrow and yeah, very very difficult to maneuver and potentially yeah, I don't know. I guess I think about people getting out of there and potentially, hitting things on the other side, or it being really challenging. But yeah, I don't have any specific questions, I think.
I saw a note from in the chat from a member of the attending that said that there is a light pole in the alleyway that's not shown on your plan. Do you, I guess, do you know where that is located, or Ms. Wyrick, if you wanted to speak to that, that would be helpful.
So I think Michael's got it queued up here. While we don't have on the plats, the conditions that exist on neighboring properties, you can see in this picture from the rear. So if our lot is that white garage door that no longer exists, you can see either one or two houses down, there is a telephone pole, and maybe that's what they're referencing. But you can see here that there is no telephone pole at our lot or really on either side of it directly.
Yeah, this is Beck. I just pulled up bird's eye view on Google Maps, and there's no, I don't see it. So I do not see a light pole or anything back within at least 3, 4, 5 properties of us.
All right, comments from attendees. Yes, Ms. Wyrick.
Yes, this is actually her husband, Eric. Yes, no, there is a light pole in the alley. It's in the end of the alley. It's maybe about 5 feet from the end of the alley and 5 feet from the edge of Marie Reed. And it's a wooden telephone pole with a light attached to it from DC. So I'm not sure what the developers are looking at, but it's there clear as day.
Well,
I don't know.
Yeah, as long as it's not within the within the right of way of the alley, I don't think it should be a problem. I know when we were laying out these vehicle turning diagrams, we basically operate under the assumption that all the property lines you see might as well be a brick wall. So like you would never count on being able to drive through any of those lines. And as you can see, we safely, in the single garage door scenario, we safely clear all of that.
I'm saying the pole is in the alley. It's in the alley space. It's not on the side of it or the edge of it. It's in the alley. Like it's an obstruction in the alley that you guys should at least note on your plans. I don't know if it's going to impact your turning radiuses or anything, but it's there.
Okay. Well, thank you for pointing
We'll
out.
take another look. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Gambrell, former Commissioner Gambrell, excuse me.
Hi, good evening. Thanks again. First off, Commissioner Gold and other commissioners, I actually hadn't even occurred to me about the trash receptacle issue as far as what I wanted to comment on. I find it hard to believe that any trash company would ever sign on to a contract to take trash out in a different way than they did everyone else. I certainly can speak to my own block when a project was completed and the trash, there was no space for trash cans and they sit in the alley all the time. So I think you're raising a really valid point there. The point I wanted to speak to, Mr. Hope I get your name right. Justice, could you bring up the 3D view again of the project?
I think Mr. Cross has the helm for.
Oh, I see.
For this. Okay.
It's the other 3D view. It's the CAD drawing. Yeah, that's it. I'm going to speak to the one on the left. And this is probably going to sound like going over the same territory again as we did at the last ANC meeting, but I think it really merits attention in relation to more space being occupied by parking. The point here is that the structure that exceeds the depth in the back on the surface, which is described as a cellar, it looks like wood surface. It was described as a cellar. That actually does count in lot occupancy. It was said earlier, it does not. Cellars do not. Well, cellars are not even part of the definition of lot occupancy. I want to read you a couple of definitions. and I'll explain why I think this is important. Lot occupancy is in subtitle B is the percentage of the total area of a lot that is occupied by the total building area of all buildings on a lot. Building area, you have to go to the definition of building area. And within that definition is building area shall be the maximum horizontal projected area of a principal building and its accessory buildings measured at the ground level of the buildings. At the ground level. So that structure back there does in fact count in lot occupancy. The calculations are that we're looking at 69% lot occupancy. Now, let me just point out what's really important about knowing this. It's possible that new precedent could be set by accepting this structure in the back as being exempt from lot occupancy, which is all part of the calculations of building density. What that essentially might do is it would say that DCRA and the zoning administrator essentially could make up new zoning regulations, and they've done it before in other areas. So what you would have there is you would have living space that was not counted, so you have more density than the regulations call for. You would have housing that is substandard because it's below surface like that. And I'm surprised that would even be occupiable because you have to generally have areaways for where people live. And like I said, you'd be basically endorsing fabrication of new zoning regulations. I think this ANC is in a position where you could educate the Board of Zoning Adjustment and bring to their attention that this is being proposed, so that they don't endorse this new precedent. And the fact of the matter is, the Board of Zoning Administrator, the Board of Zoning Adjustment, they will probably, one, grant the substandard spaces, and two, they would grant even a 69% lot occupancy. They probably will. Just so you know that. Those aren't barriers to this going forward. The barrier here is that what's being presented to you, as far as I know, does not reflect what the zoning regulations say. And I think that's a really big concern for a lot of citizens around the country. I mean, around the city. Thanks.
Thanks.
Thank you.
I
did just want to clarify one thing.
Yeah.
While we might disagree on what is or isn't lot occupancy, there is an areaway at the rear there that would allow someone to a means of egress. That's all I wanted to add.
Thank you, Alan. I think you raised a lot of interesting points. And on the other hand, I don't want to relitigate the special exception that was already approved by the ANC, and I think that this provides an opportunity if you wish to go before the board yourself. But I think here we should focus on the issue of the parking spaces. So I think I want to. Oh, sorry, Mr. Faleschini. Did I get near that?
Sorry, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Great. So I just want to, I live just about a block away, and just wanted to say that I've heard from several folks who live along that stretch of Ontario and are very concerned about the density of that space and all of the garbage cans that'll be back there, and the and trash cans being able to get in and out of that alley in order to collect trash, that it's already challenging, that they've had garbage trucks actually hit cars, hit the telephone poles along that space because it's such a thin alley. And they're really concerned about having, you know, such density so far back in that alley that's going to drive even more garbage trucks back there. So I thought that the point about how that space would limit access even more to all the trash cans that are going to be in there was a really good point, and should be taken into consideration, especially for all the neighbors who live along that block.
Thank you for those comments. I don't know if we can hold the project accountable to disruptive drivers of trucks, but it certainly raises the point about the garbage generally. Mr. Gambrell, did you want to add another comment, or you just have your hand up still?
Yeah, just another comment. I don't want to beat this, but I just wanted to point out that the ANC, when you voted 5-2 in favor of this special exception in July, one commissioner from this area, Commissioner Bowles, who's no longer on the ANC, voted in favor because, I'm gonna loosely quote him, he said he was voting in favor because he said the city needed more housing. He did not express the concern about the integrity of the zoning regulations. And so, that's not what I would consider a responsible vote. Commissioner Gold, I'll be blunt. You deferred to Commissioner Bowles. He said it was his single member district. So, the vote would have been radically different if this ANC had, in fact, followed the regulations. And I think you've gone down this path, and I think you have an opportunity to correct a wrong.
Thank you for those comments. Any other comments from panelists or commissioners? Did I see a hand up and go down? Okay, I think I'd like to
There is a hand now.
Okay, Matt M, go ahead.
Oh, hey everyone. I don't know if you can see me. I guess not, but you can hear me. Yeah, my name is Matt. Are we going to talk? Is anyone going to talk about the proposed 7-story condo at the corner of Columbia and 18th Street?
We are not. Thank you. Do you have a question about this project as we are on this agenda item?
Oh, no, I do not. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay.
Yeah, this is Beck. Just one last, I guess, final comment. Sorry, Zach. Yeah. I mean, adding this extra spot, as Michael hit on, it's one less spot on the street. And obviously, I live in DC. I live down Logan Circle. I can tell you, trying to park on a Friday and Saturday night is awful. So, big picture, we thought adding the second spot, asking for this relief, essentially did benefit the neighborhood. I know there are concerns about the trash, things of that nature, contracting, Town, private trash pickup, we thought mitigated some of those concerns. But yeah, overall, with the parking in DC, we thought adding the extra spot, was very beneficial, big picture.
Great.
That's all.
Thank you for that. Sorry, I think that I want to, I'm gonna have a slight sidebar with the commissioners. I think I'd like that this be placed on the agenda for Wednesday. I think that this group is going before the BZA this coming month, and so our colleagues should hear the case. But I do not support this special exception for shortening parking. And I think I'd like to start with a vote that the ANC not support the applicant's request for relief from parking dimension requirements. Commissioner Arani, do I need a second for that, or I've just put it out properly?
Was this noticed on our agenda? I'll second it anyways. Doesn't matter.
This was to hold a vote that the committee is not in support.
Yeah, correct. I'll second that.
Okay, so to restate the question, the vote is that this committee does not support the applicant's request for zoning relief. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. I would like
point of clarification.
Yes.
There's a couple of ways of not supporting. You could not support and send a letter to BZA without an opinion, and that's also not supporting. And you could not support and be against it and send and include that in your letter to BZA. So, is there a specific you don't have to answer this now. I mean, not support by itself is enough of a motion to put it. This is going to be on the agenda for the full ANC, but that's just something to consider when we vote on it at the full ANC. And for the record, like, what is it that's PCT just recommended? What were you intending, rather?
That's a good point. So I think then I will hold a second vote in favor of the ANC chair writing a letter to BZA opposed to this applicant's request.
I'll second that.
All right. All in favor of writing that letter, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
I'm going to abstain.
Okay. So let's then put on the agenda for next week an item that is a letter opposed to this application request. Does that sound good?
Absolutely. Yeah. It sounds like that. That is what will be on the agenda. So thanks for that clarification.
Great. Thank you all for presenting this. It was good to see you again and good to hear from you. And I guess you've heard all of our concerns. So next week is the full agenda. And if you are able to address those concerns, it could be a different matter. And obviously there'll be a different crew in front of you. So thank you all.
Thank you.
With that, there are no other agenda items. Commissioner Faulkner, Commissioner Irani, Commissioner Clem, it has been a pleasure. I will call this meeting to a close.
Well, Commissioner Chair Gold, will you be joining us at the meeting on October 6th, or is this your last meeting?
This is my last meeting on the ANC.
Let me turn on my video for this. It has been an absolute pleasure. I consider you a friend and a very competent commissioner at that, and you've served the public interest well. So thank you. I hope to see you.
I need to turn off my camera because it could get emotional, but it has been an honor to serve with all of you, and I am going away, but I am not going away. So expect to receive a lot of constituent emails about areas that we all care about.
Love that. Love that. We'll see you soon, Commissioner Gold.
Thank you.
For the next meeting and the rest of the term.
Thank you for all your leadership of this committee and your hard work. It's really, we're going to miss you.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thanks, Commissioner Gold, for everything that you've done.
Hopefully we've left a better neighborhood and